We both agree p-doom seems above 20%. What might actually work to lower it?
Yeah, we need lots of super geniuses, a whole bunch of smart humans, and they're going to make you live longer.
You're actually at the forefront of human intelligence enhancement research.
Correct. We don't need to make like alien demigods, super smart, super healthy, super long-lived babies. Optimistically, could be born in 10 years.
Welcome to Doom Debates. My guest, Tsvi Benson-Tilsen, is the co-founder of the Berkeley Genomics Project, which is contributing at the forefront of human intelligence enhancement research. Tsvi has a BS in math from the University of Chicago, and he was a math PhD student at Berkeley until 2017 when he dropped out to join the Machine Intelligence Research Institute, the one founded by Eliezer Yudkowsky. So he was at MIRI from 2017 to 2024. He was researching the theory of AGI alignment. And then in 2025, he co-founded the Berkeley Genomics Project. He's written extensively online on the technical aspects of genetic engineering human capabilities. And he runs the Reproductive Frontier Summit, which brings together top minds in that field. A very interesting guest. And today we're going to talk about his research at MIRI, his view of AI timelines and AI doom, how we're going to help lower p-doom with human genetic engineering, and other ideas he has that could also potentially help lower p-doom. Tsvi Benson-Tilsen, welcome to Doom Debates.
Hey, Leon. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on. People are always asking me when they watch Doom Debates, like, okay, yes, we're doomed, but what would you actually do about it? And I think you might be somebody who could actually give something of an answer, right?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, we're in a tough situation, but there's several things that I think we can do to potentially help.
Well, I'm looking forward to that part, but we got to start at the beginning. I got to ask you the big question. You ready for this?
Mm-hmm.
P-doom, what's your p-doom? What's your p-doom? What's your p-doom?
Tsvi Benson-Tilsen, what's your p-doom?
I don't like giving sort of integrated answers to like, if the question is what's the probability that everyone dies, it sort of combines like a ton of like very heterogeneous, complex processes. So summarizing with probability doesn't seem great to me, but I'll give a few like partial answers. So first of all, currently we are, according to me, nowhere near solving AGI alignment. In other words, we're nowhere near being able to design or create a mind that is genuinely smarter than humans or humanity, but also doesn't like immediately kill everyone. And then if we create AGI without having solved that technical challenge, I think there's a very high chance that everyone dies. So certainly greater than 90%. Also, we're not on track to solving the alignment problem anytime soon, like decades. And we don't seem especially on track to stopping or even slowing down AGI research currently. So that paints a fairly doomy picture. On the other hand, I have longer timelines than a lot of people who think about existential risk from AI. So I sort of think in terms of decades rather than years, which doesn't give me all that much hope overall because I think that the situation is quite bad, but it gives us potentially some time. So I don't know how to integrate that into a p-doom.
Okay, would you say it's at least 10% by 2050?
Yes.
Would you say it's at least 20% by 2050?
So the question is, what's the chance that everyone dies by 2050 from AI?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, it's in the ballpark of 20% by 2050.
So that's, kind of doomy. It's definitely freak out level. It's basically saying, yeah, like a 1 in 5 chance that, the entire narrative of humanity will end. I'm actually similar to that. I often say that I'm 50% by 2040, or if you prefer 10 to 90%, because it's not like I have like high precision on this. I just think less than 10 or greater than 90 seems totally uncalibrated. So I consider you well into the sane zone, like, as long as you're well above 10%. Now let's talk about timelines. You mentioned that you think in decades. So for example, you were saying that you'd be surprised if it came about like in the next 5 years.
Yeah. So when we say surprised, I mean, I'm not well calibrated about this. This is a very complicated thing, blah, blah, blah. But I will spit out numbers if you poke me hard enough. So, let's say like 1 to 3% chance of real AGI in the next 5 years.
So that is definitely lower than the way we usually aggregate people's predictions, right? If you look at Metaculus or even just people I've had on the show, usually the consensus among most people who seem informed is that like, yeah, there's like a bell curve where it seems to average around like 2031 of when we'll get like superhuman intelligence. But there's like some tails. But why are you so confident that's probably not by 2031?
Basically, it boils down to I don't see super strong evidence that we have unlocked core algorithms of intelligence that are the sort of thing that make a very creative mind. That is the sort of thing that we really worry about when we're like, there is a mind, it's alien, it has different values from us, and it's like thinking in truly creative ways that make it just able to navigate, causality in the world with surprising, weird, much greater power than we can.
I think you're putting your finger on something a little bit vaguely, but like I agree, that's also like how I think about it too, right? Of course, new insights. I mean, I think a lot of people are having similar kind of vague but related thoughts. My only question for you is why does this translate into a feeling of confidence that whatever gap you think is left isn't going to be jumped by like all the ways that so many different people are trying to jump it? Reinforcement learning comes to mind as a way to jump the gaps that LLMs have.
Well, the thing you're calling confidence is like I would say 3 to 10% in the next 10 to 15 years. Let me just make a quick comment. There's a thing that I call the missing update where I think you'll agree that LLMs are very weird. Like the distribution of capabilities is like surprising. Like maybe, I don't know if anyone really expected for us to get what we have. And so to some extent, this should update us that we're closer to AGI. But there's another update that should happen, which is, it turns out you don't need AGI to get this weird set of capabilities.
Well, this comes up a lot, right? The idea of like, how should we update on the existence of LLMs? Because I'm happy to admit I was not like I was not a deep learning advocate or whatever, right? Like I wasn't one of those people like Dario or Jan LeCun, to be fair, who was saying like, yep, it's all deep learning, guys. It's fuzzy is better than neat. Richard Sutton's bitter lesson. I wasn't one of those guys. So I had to do a hard turn or whatever. So I do admit that. And I've done a couple episodes, including one with Jim Babcock, one with just me talking of saying like, okay, so what is the correct update? And in a nutshell, it's like, yeah, there's some updates to be made, like you said, but let's take something like instrumental convergence. Does this really teach us anything about, for example, instrumental convergence?
No. I mean, the reason...
Okay, well, that's an important point.
Yeah, I think the reason it doesn't teach us much about instrumental convergence is just that we don't yet have a really thinking mind. So we're just not observing much about that, about what a thinking mind does.
Exactly. And I've used the term IntelliDynamics, synonymous with, I think, how some people have used the term agent foundations. But I feel like IntelliDynamics, in my opinion, is clear because I've made the analogy where we're not talking about studying how an AI works when we talk about IntelliDynamics. We're just talking about what intelligences do. By analogy to when we study thermodynamics, we're not necessarily studying the details of a particular engine. We're studying about the work that heat engines do, right? So there's like a separate study. And in the case of IntelliDynamics, instrumental convergence is a theorem of IntelliDynamics. So as long as you just show me that something is a powerful optimizer, I will propose that it probably has instrumental convergence. And I don't even need to know any details of LLMs besides the fact that they can optimize things to suggest that you're going to see, IntelliDynamical properties. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that seems fair. You should already see instrumental convergence to some extent. I think we do, like like LLMs put in certain game environments will figure out how to hack the system that they're in, because that's just a really useful thing to do in general. They'll figure out how to hack the game scenario or hack the computer that they're running on and like copy their weights out to some other server or something.
Exactly right. I mean, IntelliDynamics just teaches us that if we were to not observe that, we would just need like some extra reason, like, oh, they're avoiding this stuff because they think it's bad, but otherwise that would be the default, right? Like that's kind of how we think about that, though.
Yeah, I mean, I want to not overstate how much to update on current things that are happening, and that's partly like defensive in some sense, where I want to, if someone says, well, actually, I trained my system or I had some scaffold for my LLM where it doesn't do those things, I'm like, honestly, I'm not going to update very much. And the reason is that I think LLMs are not like really that intelligent or like really like genuinely creative, if you will permit me the phrase. Like the current systems don't really have the option or the ability to slide sideways in conceptual space or in algorithmic space, like write some really clever new hack that undetected to your monitoring systems is breaking out of the box that you put the AI in.
Gotcha. I have a lot of respect for MIRI. A lot of viewers of the show appreciate MIRI's contributions. I think it has made real major contributions. My question for you is, having been at MIRI for 7.5 years, how are we doing on theories of AI alignment?
So I can't speak with 100% authority because I'm not necessarily up to date on everything, and there are lots of researchers and lots of things are controversial. But if you want, from my perspective, we are basically at 0% done figuring it out, which is somewhat grim. Like basically, there's a bunch of fundamental challenges. We don't know how to grapple with these challenges, and furthermore, it's sort of like sociologically difficult to even put our attention towards grappling with those challenges because they're sort of weirder. It's like more pre-paradigm. It's harder to coordinate multiple people to work on the same thing productively. It's harder to get funding for super blue sky research, and the problems themselves are just slippery.
All right, so that brings us to the next section of what might work right now to lower PDOOM. Since we both agree PDOOM seems to be above 20%, what might actually work to lower it? What do you think?
Yeah, so of course that's a difficult question. I'll say a few things. First of all, I mean, I think by far the top priority right now should be slowing down and stopping the progress of AGI research.
Nice. So do you support #PauseAI?
I gotta be honest, I don't follow anything about anything. So I don't know exactly what their activities are. I definitely support protests and speaking out about everyone's desire to not have AI companies go full steam ahead with technology that might kill everyone.
Yeah, I mean, PauseAI, that's pretty much the whole pitch, right? Is we think that we're being too reckless right now. Like we think we've kind of pushed the limit. We're playing shuffleboard, right? A deadly game of shuffleboard or a deadly game of Icarus, flying closer and closer to the sun. And yes, it's really cool to get closer in shuffleboard or to get closer to the sun. Like I feel ya. But we've already gone past the point where a responsible civilization would go. And the mature thing to do right now is to really hit the brakes and try to understand what the hell is going on.
Yep, I totally agree with that statement and mission. Yep.
All right. And it kills me to say it because like I love the shiny new toys that are coming out, right? Like you're telling me this means that we might have to take longer before like VO makes even better videos. I'm like, that is a sacrifice I'm willing to make.
Yeah, I mean, broadly, I'm just like super pro technology. It's hard to overestimate how much technology has helped the world, like curing diseases, preventing diseases, lifting literally billions of people out of poverty. Cars are cool. Self-driving cars are going to be really cool. We can talk for forever about how great technology is, but it's just this one or two or three technologies. Like, don't make viruses in the lab that are extremely good at infecting humans. That makes no sense. And also don't make alien minds that are better at steering the entire universe than all of humanity put together. Just don't do that one.
But when it comes to like VR, knock yourself out, right?
Totally. VR, flying cars, go to Mars, all that stuff.
Exactly. VR, flying cars, go to Mars. Even social media, in my opinion, is fine.
Yeah, like social media, there's a lot of bad effects. It affects me. I gotta confess, I watch shorts for 30 minutes a day.
Great. Well, not to worry because I'm starting to pump out shorts myself. So you're going to have plenty of high quality entertainment there.
Oh, no. But yeah, I just think all those things are things we can recover from, things that we'll learn from. Parents are going to have to work out like how to not have your kid have their attention span messed up or fail to develop certain skills because they're too glued to their screens or whatever. And a lot of people are going to be anxious from social media. A lot of people are going to get bad memes. There's a lot of bad stuff for sure, but it's all stuff that humanity can grow and recover from. We'll figure out how to cope with that. AI is basically the one thing that's just kills everyone. No do-overs, no take-backs, no second chances.
Okay, so you and I both agree that, and also Eliezer Yudkowsky famously, this is his position of like, we really got to pause right now. It's gone too far. There's plenty to do with the AI we have. There's certainly plenty of research to understand what the hell is going on, what the hell is going to be going on next when we throw in more ingredients, and buy ourselves time to do what we're going to talk about next. So, okay, but we're both on the same page that pausing AI is good. All right, what else you got?
Yeah, so PauseAI And now, I mean, I would sort of break that up into several different sorts of strategies. So, there's raising public awareness. There's also governmental interventions. I do think we want an international treaty that, bans as much AI research as you can ban. I think like academics should be speaking out and saying, listen, researchers at academic labs who are doing conceptual research that's trying to figure out more about the algorithms of intelligence, this is not good research. This is like doing gain-of-function research on viruses. You should stop doing this. I'm like a mathematician or philosopher or something. I don't know about sociology and politics and whatnot, but it seems to me much more on the table to have a very strong sort of social regime in addition to a legal regime, a social regime where it's very deeply, strongly understood to not do gain-of-function AGI research.
Yep.
Just like
I'm all for it. I often say right now we have a bad situation because these people at the AI labs, I mean, it's actually today is literally the peak of it. And then it keeps getting higher, which is like, Meta is now making like these $300 million offers, like including $100 million signing boat. Like apparently it's been confirmed. Last I heard that they've done this like 10 times, which I guess makes sense.
Wow.
Because he throws billions of dollars.
So when are we going to get the like epic epoch study with the log curve of like maximum
right.
dollars for
the salaries? Exactly. Yeah. Well, I also made a joke that timelines are actually not as finite as they look. It looks like we're getting closer and closer to AGI, but as you get closer to the singularity, the force that holds people to companies, the compensation force, becomes weaker and weaker, and suddenly they get scattered all around the event horizon if they don't hold together into companies. They're too easy to hire away.
Spaghettification. Exactly.
So the timeline's actually going to be infinite. So don't worry, guys. But anyway, where I was going with this is that these people are the absolute rock stars. And if I weren't worried about doom, I would feel the pull myself. I don't think that I'm going to get the $100 million offer, but maybe I can get like a $2 million offer. I'm not going to do that because I can't see myself working in an AI lab because I think they're net negative. But my point is that these people should be like creeps. They should be thought of as creeps. And I even told you myself, like, it's tempting to go there because I think my coworkers would be rock stars. The leadership is like rock stars at running a tech company. The money's all going there. OpenAI is suddenly a $300 billion organization. Meta's throwing billions at it. So I feel the pull. Like, this is where it's at. This is where the A team is. But it should be like, look, you guys are like creeps. Like imagine, like those Chinese doctors who are like, oh yeah, I really love cloning humans and I'm going to work on the clone and I'm going to make like a mutant. That's okay if I have like a few generations of mutants because I'm doing cloning. It's like, okay, creep. Like, yeah, you technically eugenics or that kind of like cloning and engineering, technically there's absolutely a rationalization, but like how creepy that's what you're doing. Or even more creepy and more obviously bad would be, like you said, the gain of function virus research, right? Imagine it's like, my passion is gain of function virus research. Like, okay, creep. Like those aren't the rock stars getting all the money and all the status in our community. And so we've got a huge reversal that we need to be doing where we're taking like the coolest people and we have to turn them into creeps. And that's quite a lift.
Yeah. I mean, not to like chastise you or whatever. I mean, I have a similar instinct. I feel very, very negatively towards people who are trying to advance AGI capabilities. And so on the one hand, I'm like, yeah, I think I probably should express this. Like that's how I feel and think. On the other hand, I want to, as much as possible, leave lines of communication open. So certainly like in conversation, I wouldn't necessarily call someone doing gain of function AGI research a creep. I would want to like, they're going to be living in a self-constructed like social milieu where everyone's like feeling really positive about this technology. Like it's super cool. We're going to help people. We're going to make a bunch of money. I guess I'm maybe like a naive optimist or something about human nature, but I'm just like, if we can really hear where people are at and also make ourselves be heard to that particular person, like how they're thinking and what matters to them, they should be able to be convinced to stop.
Well, I think maybe I can empathize. You talk about empathy, okay? I can empathize with an AI company researcher in that I am not vegan. Even though I totally believe, the animals I eat are treated cruelly and it's like totally messed up that they suffer.
That's a great example, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. So right now when I eat meat, I feel like a rock star because I go to a steakhouse and it's like, 5 stars, like the nicest service, the most expensive, like everybody around me is like pretty rich because they're dropping like hundreds of dollars on a meal. But if society treated me differently, if a steak shop was like a brothel, right? Like, oh, you got to go to like the red light district to get like some tenderloin, like literally the tenderloin. Maybe that's how they named it. Then I'd be like, yeah, you know what? I think I'll just eat my, soy burgers, like whatever. I'm not going to go chasing meat that hard. So that is what I think we could do for AI engineering. And I think the beginning of that, moving the Overton window, is people like you coming on the show, and instead of being like, oof, yeah, I hesitate to really judge them, I would rather you be like, fuck those guys.
Yeah, I'm not saying not fuck those. Yeah, fuck those guys.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not saying not that. I guess I'm just like also saying, I mean, I will push back a bit. Is your claim that this basically just works better using social
Yeah,
stigma
so
however we can?
the whole show's purpose, Doom Debates, is, I mean, it's twofold. One is to raise the quality of discourse, but the other one is to raise awareness of imminent doom. And a lot of that is just pure moving the Overton window, filling in the missing mood. So right now, like, you listen to all these other podcasts and they occasionally bring up doom, but a lot of times they'll just like talk about other topics and just forget about doom for a second. They just won't. Um, it's like, I mean, it's a don't look up situation. The movie Don't Look Up, where the asteroid's coming, and then it's like, okay, now let's move on to the segment where we talk about celebrity gossip. It's like, wait a minute, we all as a species have like a few months to live. Why are you covering celebrity gossip right now on this show? That's what a lot of the conversation feels like. And like, I just want to make sure that we're getting to the obvious asteroid part.
So, if I'm following you, or at least a version of what you're saying, I very strongly, wholeheartedly agree with, and I do appreciate like the work that you're doing. Yeah,
Thanks.
like you should look up. AGI is going to kill everyone with, okay, 5%, 50%, whatever, 90% probability. 5% is way too much. AGI is going to kill everyone, all of humanity forever, the entire future of the promise of humanity, human love and suffering and strife and growth and creativity. All of that's going to just end stupidly for no good reason because of AGI. That should not happen. You don't want your kids to get killed. I don't want my future kids to get killed. You don't want your loved ones to get killed. Stop AGI. But I'm being more picky about how we talk about the people involved. Not like I'm not saying we should pull our punches or anything like that. I think I just want to be careful. I mean, so there's a Jewish story where there's like a rabbi who repeatedly gets accosted by like highway robbers, and then one night his wife finds him praying, and she's like, "What are you praying for?" And he's like, "I'm praying that the highway robbers will be struck down." And she says something that roughly translates to, "Don't pray for that. Hate the sin, not the sinner." Now, okay, now I don't expect you to just agree with that, but I mean, the reason I want to be picky about this type of thing is just like, as much as possible, I would prefer to have a conflict between like us and companies, or us and plans or intentions, or like a job, or like a research program. That I'm fully on board with being in a conflict with. Being in a conflict with a person, I'm not saying don't do that either. I'm just saying, as much as possible, decrease the amount of conflict you have with a person. So if I'm saying this person's a creep, it's like me as a person versus you as a person, as opposed to me, who I think that you and me have the correct opinion about AI risk. And then on the other side, there's a person who's like half in the social context and has their ideas about why it's okay, their rationalizations and their whatever motivations that don't make sense and are, in a sense, evil even. But then on the other half of them, there's like the person who cares about their kid, and the person who really could figure out, really could find another fulfilling line of work if it were made possible.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, look, I don't think that it's personal. In my mind, it's not personal with the people who work at the labs, because I can easily empathize with them, and they can fire back at me for eating meat. And, I really ought to, I mean, I do some efficient charity, so I like to think it's at least offset. Like, yep, a bunch of animals are suffering that are getting meshed up by my teeth, but also I offset, so whatever. Like, I guess that's basically my thesis on that. And also, long term, it's not a problem, because I'm going to eat synthetic meat as soon as that's available. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is, like, it's not really personal between me and the people working at the AI labs. I don't think I'm a better person than them. I just think that it's important that these people receive the message that they're being POSs.
Okay, being a creep, I feel significantly less bad about, which may sound like a tiny distinction, but yeah, if you're trying to make AGI, you are being a creep.
Exactly. You're being agreed. And it's nothing personal, but I think you should stop. And I think that if you don't stop, people should be protesting outside your office and like shunning you from their social circle instead of the opposite right now, which is treating you like a rock star. And, and not only that, but, TBPN, which is like a cool new tech news network. They're now like making trading cards and they're doing announcements like the same as like a football player getting traded to another team. They're doing it for like tech people, which is totally rational. I mean, if you just compare salary versus salary, now like the top like 2% of the tech industry makes as much as like the top 0.0001% of athletes. But you should stop that. Even though it's endlessly entertaining and fun and good times, it's like, no, stop. It's hard. I mean, you can see that my subconscious brain is kind of betraying my rational mind, right? But I'm just because I'm having a good time, but I'm just calling it like I see it, right? I'm sure Icarus was having a good time flying closer to the sun.
Yeah, I agree with most of what you said, but again, we don't have to get into this, but just to state my disagreement, I think you should invite them to your parties, but then talk to them about.
Then ambush them.
Yeah. I mean, try to
Will do.
listen to them, but confrontation-worthy empathy is my phrase.
Nice. All right. So let's move on to the coup de grace, which is you're actually trying to solve the problem. We talked about buying time. So let's say we buy a few years. You're actually trying to do something productive in the time that we've bought, right? Let's talk about that.
Right. Yeah. So as you say, there's sort of two components to not dying. You have to not die right now, and then you have to eventually not die. And how do we eventually not die? It's actually kind of hard to see ways out. One way out is to solve the alignment problem and then make smarter than human AI and then use that AI to stabilize the game board, as it were. In other words, make it so that you can't just make another AI in your basement on your laptop. So you prevent unfriendly AIs, in other words, not aligned AIs, from being created using your aligned AI. That's one sort of strategy. One of the biggest problems with that strategy is that the alignment problem is extremely difficult. It's my expert judgment that current humans don't seem quite smart enough to solve that problem. The problem is just extremely, extremely complex. It's very subtle. It requires very long chains of difficult reasoning. And the people who try to do it, including me, have failed.
Yeah. And by the way, I should comment on that because before we dismiss humanity, right? It's like we know humanity is capable of a lot when we really put our mind to it. It's just that the process of putting our mind to it usually gives us multiple tries. That's the problem.
That is one of the key problems, yeah.
Okay, but I want to move this along to germline engineering, right? That is your really special contribution to this, I think, right? Because anybody can just talk about the difficulty of alignment and like hand-waving theories, but you're actually getting in the weeds here of saying, let us make more intelligent humans by altering their genes.
Yeah, so if we wanted to back out, we could talk about other ways of potentially making smarter humans. But I've thought about the various ways, and the one way that seems like it actually would work is human germline genomic engineering, aka reprogenetics. Like reproductive
now,
genetics.
When you talk about germline, is that like the cells that are happening like in the female's egg or the male sperm?
Yeah, exactly. The germline is the cells that get passed on generation to generation, right? Like, this meme, like if you, from a certain perspective, we think of ourselves as living up here in our brains, but at least from a biological perspective, we're like gonads, like testicles and ovaries, and in particular sperm and egg cells, just transmitting themselves, replicating themselves across time, and then they grow this like flesh robot to move themselves around. That's the germline.
Yeah, that is interesting. I wonder if that's a more objectively true perspective, that the sperm cells are using the rest of the body, including the brain, to just make another machine that's going to make more sperm cells, compared to being like, oh no, the brain is steering. I mean, I guess maybe at the end of the day, you just have to say the genes are steering, right?
From an evolutionary perspective, the body and the brain are just extended phenotype of the sperm and eggs.
Right. And the only difference, I guess, the thing that makes the sperm special is that literally whatever gene combination of genes that are in them, which is going to be a slightly different mix than the combination in the brain, especially since there's only half as many, right? A sperm has half as many genes, and it like really depends which half you're transmitting on. Like that's a pretty high stakes game, and like the brain isn't really playing that game, right? Only the sperm is.
Yeah. So we're talking about human germline genomic engineering. So we're talking about heritable changes to the genome. So we're saying we're going to make a baby. The normal way to make a baby is more fun, but it involves randomly choosing half of the dad's genome and half of the mom's genome, and then you get a baby with that combined genome. So germline engineering is you're somehow influencing what genome you're giving to your future child. And then we can, if we're able to influence what genome you're giving to your future child, then we can potentially give parents the ability to sort of nudge around some traits. So if the technology works out, you can nudge down the probability that your kid will get diabetes or heart disease. You probably will be able to nudge up the sort of average IQ of a kid who grows up with that genome. In principle, you might be able to nudge around personality traits, like how open to experience you are, how neurotic you are, etc. So there's several traits that we might be able to influence. The interesting one for us in this context is IQ. It's hard to tell exactly what it means. The important facts here are that, first of all, it very likely is influenceable by influencing the genome. And second of all, if you increase IQ, you probably do, despite various controversies, but I think the pretty clear answer is that you increase a person's ability to solve problems, pursue their goals, help other people by coming up with new ideas and solving problems. In particular, you might be better at math and philosophy and computer science, and so you might be able to solve the alignment problem.
Okay, just to make it a little bit more concrete here. So let's say it's 2035, AI hasn't killed us yet, and the project that you're helping with, helping foster the research community around this kind of germline engineering, let's say it's going well. It's going in the upper end of your expectations. So let's tell a story about 2035. So like a new human baby is born and their genes are improved. So how do they get improved in this good scenario 10 years from now? Do they get like straight up printed out from a gene printer, or what's realistically happening here?
Yeah, there's several different possible methods. I'll just pick the one that's my like pet favorite. So this is, I want to emphasize this is hypothetical, but we're telling a plausible-ish future scenario. So it's 2035. You go in, the clinic gets a sperm sample. Then we look at a bunch of your sperm and we find, you have 46 chromosomes in every cell of your body. A sperm cell has half that amount of DNA, so it has 23 chromosomes, one of each chromosome number. This is chromosome number 1, 2, 3, etc. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at your sperm and we're going to say, what's your highest scoring chromosome 1? What's your highest scoring chromosome 2? What's your highest scoring chromosome 3 out of all your sperm? Somehow we're going to extract those different chromosomes, put them together into one sperm, and then we're going to fertilize an egg from your partner, and that's going to make a baby. And when we selected those sperm, we selected them to have a lot of genes that correlate with being really healthy and being really smart. And then the baby grows.
Now, I know. Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I noticed you did this at the level of chromosomes, but single ejaculation has what, like 1 million sperm?
Mm-hmm. 10 to 100 million. Yeah.
Geez, 10 to 100 million sperm, man. So if you're looking at 10 million sperm, even if you're not drilling down to the level of an individual chromosome, just selecting the best one out of 10 million, isn't that like hugely helpful?
It's a little bit helpful. From a technical perspective, it's pretty difficult even to do sperm selection. I actually have heard of one company that might be doing some sort of very weak form of sperm selection. But anyway, how powerful is it?
But your scenario involves something even more complicated than sperm selection, right? It's involving chromosome selection across the same 10 million sperm.
Yeah. That's right. They're both difficult. So how powerful? The thing is, I think sperms, if you're just selecting the best from sperm, it's going to be significantly less powerful than you might hope. The reason is that roughly speaking, the polygenic scores for the DNA in a given sperm will be sampled from a Gaussian distribution, a bell curve.
Rare. I mean, maybe I can explain it like this, right? If you get to, if you're only picking the best sperm each time, then roughly it's kind of like you now have to go 23 generations before you get the equivalent of selecting like the best combo of 23 chromosomes. I mean, not quite, right? Because it doesn't quite work like that, but it gives some intuition.
Well, the way I would give intuition, this is going to be quite rough, but it gives an okay intuition. If we compare chromosome selection with just whole sperm selection, it would be like if there's a password, you don't know the password, and you want to guess the password, there's two scenarios. In one scenario, so sperm selection is like you press a button and then the whole password gets randomly shuffled. And it's like, did I get the password or not? And you keep pressing the button until you get the password. So you're going to keep shuffling you keep resampling the whole guess of the password, like a random string of symbols. And did I get the right password? That's going to take a really, really long time. If you're doing chromosome selection, it's like you press the button and you resample all the digits, but then when you get a digit right, it stays and doesn't get resampled.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I agree that it's probably like 10 to the power of, I don't even know what, but like many powers of 10 better if you can select each chromosome individually. So I'll give you that. All right, so your ideal 2035 is like, look, a single ejaculation worth of sperm, if we could pick out best, like an average person's ejaculation, there probably is like a von Neumann, Einstein, there probably is a combo of chromosomes in there, right? Is that fair to say, or what would you guess?
It's not quite that, but it is actually pretty close to that. I think it's very hard to make these estimates. I'm being sort of both conservative and optimistic in different parts of this estimate, but I'll say something like +3 standard deviations on IQ if you can do chromosome selection on both sperm and egg from one couple. So that means +45 IQ points. So you could go from average.
Now, when you select the egg,
so it's like average to genius level or genius level to von Neumann level.
A typical woman has like, I don't even know, like a couple hundred eggs in the stash.
That's very optimistic. It's more like five or 10 or 20. Yeah.
5 or 10 is right. Yeah. I mean, so, when you're selecting on the eggs, it's definitely better than nothing, but it's like there's just so few to select from. So I feel like the sperm selection is doing the heavy lifting.
The eggs being scarce is definitely a major problem here. But even if you're willing to destroy your eggs, which is not good, but if you're willing to destroy your eggs and you have 10 or 20 eggs, you actually get like most of the power. Because again, at the chromosome level, you're doing this sampling from Gaussian, so it's pretty diminishing returns.
I see what you're saying. Wow. Okay, so if you could select the ideal, and of course, not only that, but even if you like optimize the hell out of the sperm, like you really want to make sure you get the best egg rather than the worst egg, even if there's only like 10 choices. So, I mean, yeah, and of course, like you said, mixing the chromosome. All right, so I mean, look, I totally buy the premise. I mean, I think there's a million caveats. I think this will take 10 years of research, maybe more. But in principle, I totally do think that there's so much variety to select from in a typical set of sperm and eggs from a single couple that this does seem to get us, like, I'm with you that like this should get us to like the peak of human ability. And then I guess my main concern is like, just how far beyond Einstein is there to go while still having human genes, right? Like we might still be butting up against the ceiling here.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's a significant concern in terms of like how far we can go and whether we can sort of like reliably solve the alignment problem by making 100 geniuses. No one knows the answer to how far you can go. I would quite strongly like advocate against trying to like make a quote unquote 300 IQ baby, because that would just be straight up dangerous. Like if you imagine making like we know a whole lot about the genes for height. So like if you really naively extrapolate things out just linearly, we could totally make a 10-foot baby, but that baby would just die, basically.
Instead of selecting by like extrapolating IQ, what if you select on the baby having like a really, really big head? Because those kind of genes are probably stifled because they wouldn't have been adaptive, right? Like you got to have when you have a natural birth. But now that we have C-sections, right, maybe we just go tinker specifically with brain size and head size. Maybe that's like an unlock.
Yeah, so you're pointing out one of the main ways that we can kind of get one over on natural selection, where there's like some constraint that's been unlocked.
So you would look at the statistics of head size, right? And that would tell you like, okay, so how do we get a bigger head? And then that would maybe get you more intelligence for free. I mean, maybe, scale is all you need.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Like a way bigger head.
Well.
Yeah, I'm going to patent it. You have to license that patent for me.
Right. Nice try. But that's potentially a good idea to do a little bit. I get pretty nervous when we're basically doing anything other than just looking at kind of like end output traits. And the reason is that one of the main reasons that I feel good or optimistic about reprogenetics, like germline engineering, one of the reasons I feel optimistic is that we actually have a ton of like validation and safety data in a certain sense. What I mean is you have 8 billion people running around and you can see their behavior, see their life outcomes, their health outcomes. And with their consent, you can sequence their genome. So you can actually see what genes lead to what traits and what life outcomes. If we're pushing these traits around if you're pushing it around not too much, then you're still like in the safe realm. Like you're only using genes and combinations of genes that we've actually seen in the population, and we basically know it's safe. But if you start like tinkering and doing like weird stuff where you're like trying to make one trait, one like physiological trait be really weird and outside of the human envelope, like engineering smartness is really hard. Using the like empirical observed range of smartness is probably going to work.
So wait a minute, if your goal is only just to get another Terence Tao, why not just clone Terence Tao?
Well, besides consent issues, cloning is not actually that much. It's not really easier. It's not much easier than these other reprogenetic methods. Like one big issue at a zoomed out level, there's at least two really big problems with that. One would be genome degradation. So the cells in your body basically accumulate more and more mutations. So there's going to be a bunch of damage if you just use like a skin cell or something. And even if you use a more protected cell, like a bone marrow stem cell. So that's one issue, accumulated somatic mutations. And then the other issue is what I call epigenomic correction, where DNA is like the most important thing about a cell, but the second most important thing about a cell is the epigenome, which means like chemicals that control which genes are expressed. And reproductive cells, like sperm and eggs, need a quite specific epigenetic state to make a healthy baby. Now, you've heard of cloning, you've heard of Dolly the sheep, where they take like a cell from the mammaries of like a adult sheep, and then just like stick the DNA into an oocyte, an egg, and occasionally you get a sheep, which is amazing. But 99% of the time, the embryo does not grow. And then like 0.5% of the time, you get a healthy-ish baby. And then the other 0.5% of the time, you get a deformed baby, like a baby with severe developmental defects. They are sick, they're suffering, and then they die. And
wow, you're a creep if you do that.
Yes, correct. And so cloning doesn't really bypass that problem at all. Like you don't have access to an adult. There's no cell in your adult body that is ready to become a healthy baby. If you produce sperm, then the sperm can contribute to a healthy baby if you have reasonably healthy sperm. But then we're not cloning you, right?
Okay, yeah. So I guess my real question is just like, how does your upside potential compare to that of just getting genius teenagers to have sex?
The big upside is, there's two big upsides. One upside is that it's just going to be a lot more people. Like, so the goal of this field, according to me, is like empowering parents in general on behalf of their future children. I mean, one of the big issues that people have with this technology is maybe it will increase inequality. It's like all the rich people get to have smart, healthy kids and everyone else just gets random kids. And I kind of agree with that. I'm like, yeah, we should make this technology really effective and really efficient and low cost and have it available as widely as possible. So you're going to get lots and lots of geniuses. That's the first big benefit. And the second big benefit is you can probably push a little bit, towards the upper limit.
I see. So what I'm getting is you're kind of seeing yourself as just like pushing a pretty early field forward. Like, listen, there's a lot of benefits. We just need to advance this field. And I'm asking you questions from the perspective of like, okay, we have like 5 extra years before we're all dead. So what's the full end-to-end plan? We need as many super geniuses as we can.
Yeah, we need lots of super geniuses. And then in general, I'm trying to be an appropriate helper for the field, or like a steward. Like, it's not my field, and my motivation about like AI and X-risk and all that stuff, that motivation isn't necessarily shared by most of the people in the field. And also, it's not the only thing society cares about regarding reprogenetics. Like, society has all these other issues like inequality and safety and whatnot. You're just saying, what's the end-to-end plan?
Yeah, exactly.
So like, my story isn't going to be, we make 1,000 geniuses secretly in a bunker, and then we tell them not to make AGI capabilities, but we tell them to research alignment. Like, that's not the plan that I want to do. I don't think anyone should do that. The end-to-end plan involves a step of like, now we have a lot of smart people, and I hope that they will decide to help the world. And in particular, some of them, I hope, will will put their powerful minds towards the task of decreasing existential risk from AI, which could go through several different pathways, one of which would be solving alignment, another one of which would be sort of even better convincing everyone to not make AGI for the time being and figuring out how to like implement that, whether it's technically or socially. Also, I think that there's a thing of like giving a really legitimate, hopeful alternative to making AGI, where it's like, look, you're correct. Intelligence is very powerful and important and will have immense benefits, but let's do that as humans. We don't need to make like alien demigods or whatever because we need to do it right now. Like just if you wait like 10 or 20 years or something, we'll get a whole bunch of smart humans and they're going to make you live longer. We can reach actuarial escape velocity. We can cure cancer. We can cure heart disease and any number of mental illnesses. That's just a matter of like human scale science and engineering and everything.
Zooming out here, heading toward the wrap up, you're working on this great research, but when you talked about your PDoom, you said you weren't super confident and you stuck with numbers on the less than 50% end. So it seems like on some level, your mainline scenario is that we somehow like muddle through for like many decades to come. So I guess in your mind, I just want to confirm like the speed of your germline engineering research, do you think is just going to be fast enough to help solve the problem before we're doomed?
Yes, because I'm fairly optimistic about reprogenetics and have fairly long timelines. Yes, like I'm like the first super smart, super healthy, super long-lived babies are going to hopefully be born, optimistically could be born in 10 years, maybe more likely is 15 or 20 years. And then they grow up. And then, so that means in 30 to 40 years, you start having some of these kids be contributing to the world.
If in 6 months you start seeing AIs that are winning math contests even better, I mean, we have results of winning some math contests, but like they're even better. And humans are reporting that they're like even better software engineers than humans. Like, I don't know, if you see some kind of results that make you subjectively think, oh my gosh, this is like the spark of creativity. This is like a new concept. This is like a George Cantor level provability. Would that kind of reshape your PDoom all of a sudden?
The specific examples that you gave wouldn't very much, but in general, yeah, if I saw things that made me think AGI was coming very soon, yeah, certainly my PDoom would go up a lot in some maybe relative terms. Mm-hmm. I think
so. Subjectively, you just felt the last few years like you keep reading about breakthroughs and like, wow, this is an interesting breakthrough, but it still doesn't have that spark of creativity. It's like in your mind, they've all the breakthroughs have fallen on the unimpressive side of the ledger with respect to like creativity.
In some sense, yeah, in the relevant sense.
Mm-hmm. Eliezer Yudkowsky talks about this idea in his famous post, Let's Die with Dignity, where it's like, it seems like we're probably going to die, but at least what we can do is try to do actions that significantly lower the probability, or maybe not significantly, but like measurably lower in like micro dooms or whatever. Like at least you lowered it, a millionth of a percent. That's something. If we all do that, maybe we can get to less than 50%. I want to commend you because you are somebody who is genuinely helping us increase our dignity. I won't say the die part. You're helping us increase I think it's a dignified action by this standard to boost our capability for germline engineering, to get us on the path to making smarter humans. I think that you're actually helping and not just like talking about it and joking about it and going to your regular job and trying to be a rock star and make money. I think you're actually part of the solution. So thank you for that.
Thanks. And yeah, thanks for your work. Talking about this stuff seems pretty important. We should all be thinking about this a bit more.
Hell yeah, we should. All right, I appreciate it. Tsvi Benson-Tilsen, thanks for coming on Doom Debates.
Thanks, Liron.
Thanks again to Tsvi for coming on Doom Debates and sharing his perspective on the alignment problem and how he's helping solve it. If you want to work on germline engineering, or to invest in germline engineering, or to discuss and debate the future of germline engineering, or potentially you're interested in using it for your own future children, you can reach out to Tsvi at Berkeley Genomics Project at gmail.com. I'll put his email in the show notes as well. If you want to watch more great episodes like this, go to my Substack, doomdebates.com, enter your email address. So then you're subscribed. Go to youtube.com/@doomdebates. Subscribe to Doom Debates in your podcast player. Hey, go check out the archives. There's some great episodes that you probably haven't seen yet. Just scroll those archives. You're going to find a gem. That is your assignment for today. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next time on Doom Debates.